work, not having the system view and not taking a holistic view on change, and seeing that climate affects all areas of society and that they are all interlinked. Okay. So we need to change our way of working. I think that goes for all governments in the world. Some are maybe a little bit better than others, but that is the fundamental reason why we see all these tragic problems all around us, not only climate, but also inequality and the social tensions that will increase.
Yes, perhaps we can come back on this in a moment, because it strikes me that it's taken a long time for governments to internalize the concepts of circularity, the concepts of joining all the dots. You know, there's a bit of atomization within government ministries. You've got one person setting good decarbonization targets, but you've got another one perhaps funding fossil fuel subsidies and looking how to increase fuel production. Stanley, you, when we talked the other day, you were interested in that you felt there had been a bit of a turnaround or a turning moment in the issue of nature. Explain
yes,
that.
absolutely, Nick. And I take the opportunity to pay tribute, actually, to the Swedish government. I go all the way back to even before Stockholm. 1972, when the Swedish ambassador to the United Nations, Sverker Astrom, really raised the flag and said we have to do something. So hello, Christina, and hello, Matthias, and well done, Sweden. Well, I think we are moving, and I know I don't have long, but I think this whole point of the integration of the different themes is actually extremely important. And looking to COP27, I think there is a huge opportunity, for example, to build the nature side of as well the reaction to climate change into the whole package. I think it became absolutely clear from COP26 and even earlier that you can't get to where you want to get, which is 1.5 degrees Celsius or even better, unless nature plays its full role. And the idea is that nature might do 30% even of the ask. Well, there's some good signs. I'm not going to be negative here. And one of the signs, I think, is really the enthusiasm with which China has taken up the challenge here. Not only, of course, is China the chair of the Kunming process, which at the moment, needs to get to its final hurdle, but it's moving in the right direction. But China is also launching or hosting the Ramsar meeting in November in Wuhan. And I do want to draw attention to another initiative which the Chinese government has really taken in response to 3 resolutions by the CBD, the CMS, and the Ramsar, and also the IUCN, and that is to set up a World Coastal Forum. And for those who haven't yet clocked in on this one, look at worldcoastalforum.org, and you will see that the Chinese government has said, look, we do think we've got to move firmly here to protect the coastal regions of the world, and that is going to be a very important aspect of dealing with climate change, not only in the mitigation aspect, but also as far as the adaptation is concerned. And of course, I'm including in the coastal regions, I'm including coral reefs and so on. So yes, I am actually enthusiastic of the mission, that the meaning is being absorbed, but will it be absorbed fast enough? That we don't yet know. But I have high hopes that the union of countries like Egypt, which is the new chair of COP27, the UK, which is the old chair of COP26, and great countries like China, Australia, the EU, who had major advances, will move it along. So I'm being optimistic.
All right,
Nick, this is the moment for optimism.
It's good to be optimistic. Maybe we need to not wind up this panel right now, but I mean, do you think there is a possibility, and it's a tough one for you to answer really, Matthias, but because you're in government, but is there a possibility that through things like citizens' assemblies, through the massive youth and civil society movements now, which are really, that's one thing that's so tangible about the last 10 years, maybe even less, can put that kind of pressure on governments to actually start making the really right decisions that don't seem schizophrenic anymore, but seem joined up? Anybody want to answer this?
I think the points that you're highlighting, the interlinkages between human rights, democratic development, and democratic space for all actors in society to be part of climate action, from the youth movement, civil society, business, for everyone to be able to engage in in their own countries and in sort of putting forward suggestions on policies and kind of how to implement those policies. I think that's really a key aspect. So if we're sort of seeing more countries having that kind of democratic space for all actors to engage, I think that's one thing. And the sort of also, speaking as a proud bureaucrat and picking up on the points which both Christina and Stanley made, you know, getting to sort of the basics of how do you integrate climate action and nature in your budget process, in your legislative process, making sure that you sort of linking all the dots, also when it comes to gender equality, for example, and health. I mean, where we see the pandemic, sort of how do we make sure that we have a policy space that creates that kind of interlinkages and benefits and finds the synergies between those. I think that's another sort of piece where all governments can work on making sure that we have those kind of institutions to drive climate action more forcefully.
Yeah, I mean, briefly, other two guests. I mean, is this possible? I mean, are we just going to drift along in the same way, nibbling away at getting better rather than fully transforming ourselves?
Nick, I want to say something which I would have said right at the beginning. We must never lose sight of the population driver. We've heard a lot about the economic growth driver. Yeah. We mustn't lose sight of the population driver. And I pay tribute also, you know, to Sweden in this regard as well. We've had world population conferences. We have said to ourselves, Mexico in 1994 said so. We've got to aim to bring down the world birth rate, and that has to be crucial.
Right, education. Christina.
Well, I put my hope to the combination of pressure from civil society and business. Unfortunately, civil society takes time to organize but it's coming more and more. And business knows that the future lies in a fossil-free society that is good for economic development, it's good for competitive strength, and it's necessary, absolutely necessary, to reach the fossil-free society in order for societies to prosper. And that lies in the interest of all, not least business. So I hope that governments will really learn and take stock of all the knowledge that there is in how we solve this crisis that lies ahead of us.
Good, thank you. I always enjoy being in Sweden because I think the creativity of your industry is amazing, and I think the rest of the world has a lot to learn from the creativity of Sweden. But gentlemen, Christina, we have to end this part of the panel. I have to go over to our hubs now in Nairobi first and welcome them. I'm hoping to see, is it Simon Anderson, the CCO of, you're going to have to tell me because I can't read this sort of Swedish English writing that I've been given. Please, introduce yourself. Is it Simon? Great.
How are you? How are you doing? Happy Earth Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Timothy.
What would you like to speak about?
No, I'm just updating you on the events that are taking place here at the Nairobi Hub.
Okay.
We are having the engagement, and it's really interesting to have such a vibrant audience from the various planning institutions across the country. We want to bring in our two panelists who have been with us. That is Simon, Madam Simon, who will take us through, will make her contribution regarding to today's discussion. And also we have Paris Njoroge, who is the Chief Environment Personnel from World Rally Championship. So welcome, Madam Simon.
Hello, everyone.
Christina, you can stay or you can go. It's fine.
Okay, you can all hear me, I hope.
Hello, Nairobi. Yeah.
So, lovely to be here. My name is Simon Andersson, and I'm working for a company here called We Center for Electronic Waste Management. And I'm happy and super proud to be Swedish today and here. But it is time for urgent action. And to be here, hearing also, we had a session here, questions from students. How do we do this? How do we reach out? I'm so I have such anxiety and really want to know from the panelists now here at We Don't Have Time, how do we work with resource management? For this session, we had a keynote from Volvo, etc. So what do you see what can we do to also bring it to the African continent and be of service to help so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel? How can we alternate and support looking at how the society is working here? That is one of my questions. And then to go into that kind of resource management, not only for the global representative, of course, how do we work with standards, quality standards and testing of reusable materials, components, etc., so that we can get them into a circularity? And also working with accountability and traceability of different items.
Okay, that's a three-part question. I just think you need to know that right now, this question is being asked to me because our panelists are not here right now, but also we got Shweta Chakrabarti, the head of our US operations, here on the show as well. Maybe I'll just try and answer briefly one question. What we've been seeing here, Simone, is as a very strong interest that we need to develop the circular economy in which nothing is waste. And you know that globally, less than 9% of the global economy is circular. How do you bring circular principles to an economy is one of the big challenges. Some countries are now pushing the boundaries, the Netherlands, for example. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that we need to reach a point at which governments understand that there is nothing called waste, that it is all a resource for another process. But sometimes the biggest challenge are actually the government policies that actually work against using waste. In a country like Sweden, for example, it's very difficult to actually reuse certain minerals that have been used in a process before, and they'd rather actually in the law have virgin materials mined halfway around the world using tons of energy, rather than using those materials that are in things like the wastewater stream, in the household waste stream. These are materials that could be brought back into the economy and being very useful. So government standards are very important. And in the developing countries, I think it's absolutely clear that one needs to work with some of the kind of standards institutions of, say, the United Nations and others to actually bring those kinds of laws into place that allow waste to be reused, as long as they're within health and safety standards, of course, and that's another key thing as well, particularly in a country like Kenya. Shweta, maybe, I don't know if you heard what Simone said, but if you have any thoughts on this, if not, what are your reflections on the show so far?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Nick, you are 3 expert panelists in one. So the questions that the panelists might have not been able to answer, you just nailed it. Thank you for your insights. I'm going to throw one at you too.
Oh, great.
To continue to put you on the spot. So here in Washington, we are a stone's throw from the White House and from Capitol Hill. And what I've been hearing from this segment, the previous segments, is a real call to action from country leaders. And we know the United States has historically been leading the charge on ensuring that these global ambitions are met ahead of these various multilateral events, COP26 most recently, Stockholm Plus 50 coming up, of course, COP27 at the end of the year. So what is it that we're asking of US leadership right now? I would love your thoughts on this, Nick. What is it that we, if we talk loudly enough, might actually be overheard on Capitol Hill? We are really just that close. What do you think? What would the one ask be on this Earth Day of US leadership?
I think the one ask would be in respect to climate change is that for many countries around the world, still to this day, the United States is seen as a major power and to have a major influence on the world, in which of course it does. But there are other major powers now. It's not like the old days of 1972. But I think there is still a sense that the United States has not gone as far and as fast as it could do with its climate action within the United States. But more importantly, because the biggest prize are the emissions we can reduce in the developing countries, that we can avoid. And I think with the new administration, to reverse some of the cuts to the overseas development aid budgets in terms of support for developing countries would have multiple benefits for the local people in those countries, but also for the global climate. And it's not